I wanted to
here?
ask you,
Yeah.
you've seen Game of Thrones.
Well, a little bit, yeah.
A little bit?
Here and there.
What's the character in Game of Thrones that you think you are? Like, who are you in Game of Thrones?
That I think I am?
Yeah. Because there's a difference between how you think of yourself and how others think of you.
Of course, yeah. That's a good question. Because I'm trying to, I guess that depends, how good of a person do you think you are? You know?
Oh, I know I'm a piece of shit. But
Sure, that's good that you know that. Self-awareness is very important.
I think so.
But Game of Thrones is a show that has a pretty wide range of character principles, I guess I could say. Mm-hmm. There's really good characters that are pretty, that you as a viewer can feel confident that character is inherently good. Mm-hmm. Like Ned Stark, for a good example. Yeah. And then there's characters that, by the end, you're very confident in just saying are pretty much just pure evil, like Cersei Lannister.
Right.
When it comes to which character I am, I don't. Do you have an answer?
I think I do. We talked about this before in Philly.
Oh, we did.
We did. I have to admit that I'm probably Davos Seaworth, the Onion Knight.
That's a good one. I like Davos.
Well, I hate to admit it because he has such a not lame presence in the show, but just not. He's not Jon Snow, right? Yeah. Every guy probably wants to be on that level, but if you're being honest, you're probably more like Davos Seaworth, and there's nothing wrong. He's nice guy, has his standards, and he's alive by the end of the show.
True.
Right?
Very true.
Which Game of Thrones character are you?
I guess I would answer. Yeah, I guess I can answer. I guess I'll just say Jorah Mormont.
Really?
Yeah, he's one of my. He's definitely top 5 favorite characters for me in the show too.
Damn.
But my favorite character is nothing like me, so I'll probably say Jorah Mormont.
Who's your favorite character?
Jaime Lannister. Easily.
Oh yeah, you're nothing like him. You got both hands.
Yeah, true that. But Jaime just has, in my opinion, the best character arc up to the long night in the series.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
What was that tone?
Well, you're way more I think you have the most positive outlook on season 8 than anyone I've ever met.
I mean, people jump immediately to the negatives of season 8, which definitely eclipse most of the positives. But the second episode alone of season 8, I think, is one of the best episodes of that series, because it is all of the characters culminating at Winterfell on the eve of the Long Night Battle, and you get all of these amazing exchanges between characters that you've never seen exchange with one another whatsoever. And there's that incredible scene where a bunch of these characters like Brienne, Jaime, Podrick, Tyrion, they're sitting by the fire.
Yeah.
Brienne gets knighted. Podrick sings that gorgeous song, and everybody's just slowly preparing for battle. And it's this is amazing stuff. This season does some pretty great stuff with, particularly with that episode. And I just think that escapes people because everybody immediately jumps to the negatives. And when it comes to the way that I think that I'm something like Jorah Mormont, I guess he's one of those characters that maintains this sense of hope throughout the entire season, even though literally his entire home is against him. He's cast out for his
slavery,
for understandable reasons, but at the same time, he is constantly on this path of redemption for himself, and he's also just constantly down bad for Daenerys the entire series too. But you're looking at me like that's a strange thing to say.
Well, you also just said that this was a person who you feel like
I didn't
yourself. So
I didn't. Okay, I didn't mean it that way.
I identify with a man that's down bad for this woman. I like women with dragons.
That'd be cool. But what I mean by that specifically,
I love you, Daenerys.
I'm specifying that in terms of his character in the series. His character, you're funny.
Hey, you know what? It's you know what? Even Davos is no better because he's not necessarily down bad, but he's just mistreated by almost everyone around him except for Jon Snow, I think.
That's true. He becomes his hand or whatever. I don't know. I don't fully remember. But I just think that the fact that Jorah is so down bad for Daenerys in the entire series adds to the fact that he's constantly on this path of redemption for himself, and he has a really good character arc throughout the entire series, and I really find it interesting and fascinating, and I admire his constant sense of hope, even though he has every reason to not feel that way throughout the series, and he's a great character. I really like that character.
Well, wonderful introduction.
Very much so. I would say so. So now that leads us to talking about House of the Dragon. I'm sure we'll touch on season 1 from time to time throughout this episode, but This is mostly for us, and this is mostly about season 2, because we don't really know who out there has really been watching this season. I haven't talked to a ton of people as this season has been airing that have also been watching it. You and a couple other people are the only ones. So this episode's for us.
Really, it is.
And I'm really excited about that. Yeah. And I think, one for them, one for us.
Well, really, 12 for them and then one for us.
Pretty much. I mean, especially the Deadpool and Wolverine episode.
Oh, yeah. Well, we enjoyed that one.
That was fun. I mean, I always enjoyed it.
The trap, I don't think we did that for anyone.
We didn't really.
I think we shouldn't have done it. We shouldn't have given that movie any attention.
Maybe not. But it was a fun episode regardless. And so will be this one. So without further ado, this is the Loose Leaf Media Podcast. My name is Davis Leaf. I'm here with my co-host,
Romanus.
And as previously stated, we are here to talk about House of the Dragon, specifically Season 2. So, let's get into it, because it's been a very exhausting 8 weeks of watching this show, mostly in a good way.
I have a summary.
Please.
Okay. As Rhaenyra Targaryen grapples with the devastating loss of her child, the realm plunges into chaos. The High Towers, led by Queen Alicent and her father Otto, rally forces to defend Aegon II's claim to the Iron Throne. The battle between the Blacks and the Greens begins now, and all must choose.
All must choose. Hey. So for anybody out there that does not watch this show and has never seen Game of Thrones, all these names and all of that summarization is going to be an absolutely nothing to you. But I love it.
Oh,
I love it.
You like my summary?
Yeah. Did you write it yourself?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Let's go.
That's pretty good. That's
and
pretty good. You should write for Wikipedia.
One take.
One take?
One take.
One go.
All it did.
That's impressive.
I think that was read really well.
That was very good for you. Good for you.
Oh, well, yeah. I'm patting myself on the back.
As you should. He's literally doing that. You hear
Absolutely.
that? You hear that?
They did.
Good job.
What did you think of the season?
Majority of the season is spectacular. Not as good as season 1, though.
Oh.
And there is one very
Interessante.
There's one very distinctive reason that I just got it. I'm sure we're gonna talk about it a lot. I'm gonna wait a little bit to really get into a lot of spoilers for this season. Okay. Even though, again, don't really know anyone out there that's watching this right now other than us, especially on this podcast. But by the end of this series, still highly recommend it. Watch House of the Dragon, especially if you love Game of Thrones. And this series as a spin-off doesn't really beat you over the head with Game of Thrones related references, which is really nice. There's just mostly a lot of character names, just like our family lineages that are attached to a lot of main characters from Game of Thrones. But to get this off my chest, large majority of this series is spectacular and consistently good until the finale.
And we can talk about that because I think I have some issues with the finale, but
we'll talk about the finale.
I actually really enjoyed it.
It's a good episode. It's just a bad finale.
Whoa. Oh, you know what? I might. Okay, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Okay. I was a big fan of the first season, and even before the season, I remember we talked about this a few months ago. How you were sort of waiting you were hesitant to say that you were looking forward to the second season of House of the Dragon, right? But it turns out that we were hooked to this show after the second episode into season 2.
We absolutely were.
There are a lot of differences between season 1 and 2 and just like the story structure. But man, it feels like a great follow up to a great season, man. Season 2 has a lot of great moments. The cinematography
better than ever,
right?
Even in Game of Thrones terms too.
Yeah.
Just absolutely better than ever.
There are some shots in season 2 where it feels like they're paintings. They look so beautiful.
They are. They're very portrait like,
Yeah.
and they're very large scale painting. And
Yeah.
they're actually there's some shots that are burned into my brain now, where I'm like,
Right.
I will get an oil painting of this shot and hang it on my wall.
And the other thing I want to say about season 2 is it oozes with incredibly memorable lines delivered by the actors in each episode. Like there's at least one line from each episode that will stick with me, or like just certain characters where I'm like, damn, they really their arc was really fleshed out in this episode, or oh, I finally see why this character has been introduced. Like it felt like most of the characters. There's one character where I felt like got no payoff. But
I'm pretty sure we're gonna have the
choose the same character. I mean, it's pretty obvious.
It is very obvious.
But other than that, man, just a wonderfully crafted season, and the differences between season 1 and season 2. Season 1 had a few time jumps and a significant one that was 10 years, where they even changed like the two main actresses.
And they do that with the younger cast a couple times during the second half of the first season.
Right.
And usually that kind of unconventional way of plotting and structuring and pacing your season of television would not work for me, especially when you compare it to something like Game of Thrones. It's it wasn't off-putting. It just really took me off guard in the first season. But that's what made it so distinctively different from Game of Thrones, and a huge reason why I was enjoying it too. It was really working for me in the first season.
Yeah, and you know what? I will say that even in season 1, the most important part of the time jump for me was seeing the progression of Viserys's disease, right? Viserys being the king, the original king in the show, who then dies.
Queen Rhaenyra's father.
Exactly. That's the perfect way to say it. Seeing his demise actually help jump the progression of the show. Because
that's literally when it all falls apart.
Exactly. So, yeah, in season 2, it's more linear. There's no time jumps. You're seeing a story actually progress, and I think that I actually prefer it other than the time jump in season 1, even though I didn't mind it. Man, season 2 just blew me away.
Yeah, season 2, it definitely feels a lot more like you said, linear and real time, because it's only taking place in the matter of a few weeks.
Right.
Where in the first season, it's like literally
10 years.
Yeah, decades almost, because there's like time throughout the first half where it's jumping years and years too. And then, yes, there is that 10-year time jump. And then there's like a 6-year time jump. And then there's like
when the kids grow up. Right,
exactly. So it's like really, it's almost generational.
Yeah, when Rhaenyra's when Rhaenyra and Alicent's children grow up.
And that's one of the things about like when I finished the first season, that I was like, it was nice subverting my expectations and suspending disbelief, because, I'm looking at these characters and I'm like, they're not really looking like the age they should be in this time period.
Yeah.
And that carries over to this season. But again, fantasy almost has no rules whatsoever. And ultimately, it's just like, it didn't matter, because the plot and the story is so rich and it's so detailed and it's so good. Yeah. So I'm not going to sit there and think about Aemon Targaryen is supposed to be like a late teenager who's clearly played by a guy in his 30s.
Well, no, even
his like late 20s.
When I was reviewing, when I was making the notes for this review, Olivia Cook, the actress for Alicent Hightower, she's only a year older than the actor for King Aegon.
Yeah, I know.
And they
and that's
the
mother,
right? Yeah, so
it's pretty obvious they're the same age.
but it's acted so well that you can suspend your disbelief and enjoy the show.
Absolutely, and plus they partially get away with the fact that in this kind of like, I don't want, like, it's fantasy, but it's also like very medieval. So these characters are obviously having a lot of children at substantially younger ages than you would expect people in modern times to have. So it's like the fact that a lot of these parents look extremely young, regardless of how old their kids look, that makes sense to me.
Right.
So, suspending disbelief isn't really that difficult in this series, which is nice.
Well, what were some of your favorite parts of the season?
I mean, I could literally go episode for episode. Like, I have a list of all the best parts of each episode on this.
Fuck it. It's the Loose Leaf Podcast.
Yeah, let's get into episode 1, which is titled Son for a Son.
A Son for a Son.
I love the moment where Rhaenyra is mourning the loss of Lucerys, from the finale of season 1, and she has one line of dialogue the entire episode. That's brilliant, and a surprising way that they kind of reintroduce her character in this series, but not an unbelievable way whatsoever. That scene is great. Aegon this is the first episode where we really feel some genuine character development for Aegon in this series, and they establish him as somewhat sympathetic towards a lot of the small folk when he's sitting the throne and listening to everybody's problems.
Yeah.
And Otto Hightower is trying to counsel him between the dynamics of appeasing your people in King's Landing and making sure you're stockpiling supplies for the impending war. And then I obviously love Queen Helena's cryptic message about being afraid of the rats at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Where, if you're paying attention to her character in the first season, you know that she is hinting at a lot of things that actually happened through her dialogue. And they immediately jump right into that with her character in the season, and it pays off perfectly by the very end of the episode. And that's something that this season does a really good job at, is setting up plot details at the beginning of the episode and then paying them off by the end of the episode even, so that the episodes have a continuous story that's going on, but still feel very individualized in that way. And the finale of that episode is one of the most gut-wrenching moments in the entire series, Game of Thrones included.
Jaw-dropping. I could not believe what I was hearing. The sound
design there
is haunting. I still remember it.
I'll always remember that moment.
I don't think I can ever watch that episode again.
Yeah,
I might have to skip that episode if I ever do.
It's a gut-wrenching moment. It's like that. It's like it's kind of like that moment from Game of Thrones where it's the marriage night between Sansa Stark and Ramsay Bolton.
Oh yeah,
where it's like kind of hard to revisit that episode,
right?
But like even after that scene happens in Son for a Son here, you get this great moment where Helena is just walking through the corridors in one long take all the way,
and walking to Alicent's
Alicent
bedroom.
doing things,
doing things,
doing the thing,
doing the grown up.
Yep, doing the grown up stuff.
No pants dance.
Yep, yeah. Oh yeah, that's a good one. I haven't heard that in a long time.
Oh wow.
And then she just literally lays down and says that line, and then the episode ends, and it's terrific episode. Terrific.
Oh great! I remember texting you after the episode, and you were like, "Yep, I was fucking wrong. This season's good already.
This season's about to go hard." That was such a reassuring feeling because yes, I did have those reservations going into the season, and by the end, I'm not going to say that those initial reservations didn't fully reveal themselves by the end, because I watched four shows over this summer, and when I was first starting this series, it started off as probably the best one I was watching, and I have to admit, by the end, it's definitely my least favorite season of television out of like The Boys, The Bear, and Presumed Innocent.
Okay.
For all the shows that I've watched this summer.
Interesting.
And I've watched 4 really great shows this summer, but yeah, started off very high, and because of the way it ended, it kind of is at the bottom because it didn't wrap itself up well for me.
I kind of want to skip to your thoughts on the season finale now, because is that where the show lost you?
Yeah, pretty much. But it also revealed to me that the show does peak long before the finale, and I think a lot of people, despite how they feel about the finale, would agree with that, and it definitely peaks at episode 4, because episode 4 feels like the climax of everything going on in this series, or this season.
So the Red Dragon and the Gold.
Yes.
Right.
And even though that's not my favorite episode of the series, it's the biggest climax the season gives us.
Sure. And of course, should we just get into spoilers?
No. We can wait a little bit. I mean, I'll just run through some of the episodes quick and some of the details.
Okay.
And then we'll backtrack a little bit and talk about some of these details. So, episode 2, Rhaenyra the Cruel. Love Tom Glencarney's performance as Aegon when he's just lashing out about what had happened to him in the beginning of or at the very end of the last episode. His acting is terrific. This is what really makes me hate Christian Cole in this episode. I already hated that guy, but
see, I love Christian Cole.
Well, yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Oh,
but
shit.
So we'll get into that because I have some things to say about him by the end of this season too.
Okay.
But I love the introduction of Alan and Adam Hull in that episode as well. Two great characters throughout this season.
Absolutely.
And I love this, like that brief moment that's perfect foreshadowing when you see Sea Smoke kind of monitoring Adam.
Yeah.
When he's like kind of messing around on the beach.
Yeah.
And he looks up and he sees Sea Smoke flying around. That was a great setup right there.
Damn, I forgot all about that, but you're right. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's bizarre to me how well this show is, that this season pays things off for the first 7 episodes and then does nothing in the last episode.
Well, damn. Well, I mean, but back to that, I like how even that moment is subtle. You don't know what to make of, the dragon flying over Adam's head, and he's just on the beach, just, he's of salt and sea. And then later on, he becomes a dragon rider.
Yep.
And I think one of the probably in Westeros's written history of a Targaryen bastard riding a dragon, because even in that moment you have no clue what
was he Targaryen or was he Valerian?
Valerian.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But can Valerians ride dragons?
Yeah, because Lenore rode Sea Smoke before in the first season.
Yes, okay.
And he was Valerian.
Yes.
But he was also Targaryen because his mother was Rhaenys.
Right.
Episode 3 is my favorite episode in this season. I think might be my favorite episode in the series so far.
You talked about that.
Yeah, the Burning Mill.
Yeah.
And I actually, I don't usually care about, audience scores because, general audiences are idiots. And
not ours, though. We love
No,
you.
Of course not.
Wait, whoa. Hey, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Did you hear that hesitation?
No. Hey, we've only gotten great comments from this audience.
We love all of you. We think that because you're listening to us, you have great taste.
Jesus.
No, I mean that.
Jesus Christ.
Thank you. We think that you, as a general audience, are the good ones, are the smart ones. But to my point, I was looking at audience scores for IMDb, a horrible movie website that's questionably efficient, but that's just my opinion. And I saw that this was one of the lower rated episodes of the season by audiences.
No kidding.
I found that weird because I think this episode is just absolute gold, because you have the opening between the conflict between the Bracken and the Blackwoods just completely decimating their own land, and it doesn't show you that.
No.
It immediately jumps to that. It jumps away and shows you the aftermath of it. I think is brilliant direction in that episode. We get introduced to a lot of big players in this season in that episode. Gwaine Hightower, Ulf the Dragon Seed, Alice Rivers, and Simon Strong. Yeah. All of whom are very, very pivotal to this entire season, and they're all great characters as well.
But their introductions are all subtle.
Yes, very much so.
I can't really even remember all of their introductions in that episode, but I remember where they're at by the end of the season.
Yeah.
And the writing is... Well, again, I keep saying subtle, but there's no other word for it, because they don't occupy a ton of scenes until they get towards the end of the season. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But it's an episode that does introduce a lot of important characters, and all of the dialogue with their introduction is phenomenal. Right. There's things to talk about, but this is also the episode that where the Daemon arc really kind of takes off because he's reached Harrenhal. Yeah. And that's a whole thing this whole season. But
let's talk about that.
Well, yeah.
I loved it.
I think it's the weakest plot point in this entire season.
Oh my god!
I get it.
We're gonna have a fight about this.
Maybe, but what did you love about it?
I think just about Daemon's entire arc. What I appreciated was him being on this mission, and again to prove himself. Even in the first season, Daemon is constantly trying to prove himself that he could have been king, that it shouldn't have been Rhaenyra who is going to be in charge of Westeros. or even Viserys, his older brother. And there are moments when he is willing to yield, but then not completely. Like there's always a part of him that wants the crown, because there's never a moment where he actually is put in position to be in a leadership role and he suffers the real consequences of being at the throne, right? Or even just close to the vicinity. And those visions, a lot of them are kind of weird and random, right? It's just like, what the fuck is going on? Like he's just wandering around in Harrenhal. This big, dilapidated...
I like the way those scenes are edited.
Oh, that's...
Like the editing in those scenes are terrific.
I don't... Yeah, no, even the editing in the whole show is great. I think that
Except one moment at the very end. I'll talk about that.
Oh, okay, yeah. But I think what's great about those scenes of Daemon at Harrenhal is that really the ending, it all leads to... No, really... Oh, fuck you, Davis.
For the record, I'm shaking my head, and that's why he's saying that.
No, I just yell "fuck you, Davis" when just
you do, but like now there was a reason.
Yes, I don't need a reason though.
That's true.
No,
well, you made that clear.
No,
off mic.
Off mic. No. Let's just jump to one of my favorite moments in the season.
Let's do it.
When Oscar Tully.
Oh, fuck yes.
Right?
Are you kidding me?
Oscar Tully is in the courtyard with Daemon, and Daemon is trying to get all of the families in the Riverlands to join him in his army that's going to oppose the Greens.
Was that which episode was that? Episode 7?
Episode 7,
okay,
The Red Sowing, which is my favorite episode.
That might be my second favorite of the season. That is a terrific episode.
I think it leads to my favorite moment of probably each season, where Daemon is forced to execute this
the
Blackwood who
and isn't that the same kid from season 1 who was trying to court Rhaenyra?
We gotta look that up.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Like, because that kid was a Blackwood, and that's how the series introduces the conflict between the Brackens and the Blackwood. When there's all these suitors that are coming to Rhaenyra for her. What do they call it? The king something
regent.
No, it's Prince Regent for Aemond.
Oh, exactly.
But you know what I'm talking about, because like Simon checks Daemon at one point with that title.
Yeah.
But yeah, all of these suitors are courting Rhaenyra, and there's the small kid who's part of the Blackwood family who is trying to court Rhaenyra, and he just fucking takes out that fully grown adult Bracken guy with his sword, and it's a really cool moment. But I think that kid is the same kid that we see in this season, now grown up. I might be wrong about that, but
we'll check that. But
somebody let us know, like if I'm wrong about that. But we'll look into that on our own time.
But Daemon directed this Blackwood to commit some war crimes, in order for Daemon to gain some advancement. I'm not.
Well, he was trying to unite a lot of the folk in the Riverlands by just inciting violence between the Brackens and the Blackwood, which is already persisting at that point.
But that angers a lot of the families in the Riverlands, and so
Oscar Tully included.
Right? And so now this kid, Oscar Tully, after his grandfather dies, is in charge of all these families.
And keep in mind, this kid is also, he's like 12 or 13 or something.
Probably. Yeah, the actor's probably 17.
True,
or
but like
16,
he's so young.
Yeah, and even his introduction to all of these families in front of Daemon, he looks very underwhelming and unassuming, but he has such command with his words, just saying, just follow me like you followed my grandfather, and I will earn your trust. Immediately I was like, fuck, I'll fight for you, Oscar Tully.
So
right?
True.
Right?
And he has an exchange before he like gets like in the middle of all of those houses in the Godswood or whatever.
Yeah.
And he has an exchange with Daemon, and Daemon is trying to kind of like intimidate him and overpower him with his words, and then Oscar Tully just kind of like turns towards him and like puffs out his chest almost, and he's just like, look, man, you're on my territory.
Absolutely.
I'm the shot caller around here.
Absolutely.
And this is how it's going to go if you want to get what you want. And Daemon's immediately like, well then. Daemon like shows respect for this kid. And it's and he does throughout most of that scene. And it's incredible how much he commands the room.
And Oscar is right. His word, his state matters. Where he's sitting, it matters to the Riverlands. And Daemon needs the Riverlands to fight the Greens. And so how does Oscar Tully just combine all of the forces for the Riverlands? He demands that Daemon executes the Blackwood that was the first person that
was supporting Daemon.
Was the first person that supported Daemon in the Riverlands. Daemon has to execute. He's forced to, and you can tell that Daemon is hesitant to execute this guy because he was so faithful to him. He was willing to, do all of this fucked up shit in this war for Daemon. And after Daemon executes him, Daemon walks out away from all the people. Even though he has this army, he just walks into another room and he sees a vision of Viserys. And Viserys has the crown in his hand, but he's sick. He has the mask that's hiding his rotting face. And Viserys just looks at Daemon and basically says, like, is this really what you want?
Yeah, like, you don't want this.
You don't want to be king. Because it reminded me a lot of the first quote that really stood with me in Game of Thrones is, the man that passed the sentence has to swing the sword, right? Like it reminded me of that, and it just goes to show you that leadership isn't all what it looks to be. Like, with all those riches comes a lot of responsibilities and a lot of hard decisions.
There's a lot of different paraphrases of things like that when it comes to just like leaders are chosen. They don't seek leadership and things like that.
Right.
And that's the dilemma that Daemon is kind of always facing throughout the series, is that nobody believes in him to be a good leader because he wants it more than anybody. And you see the actions that he displays in order to get what he wants, because one of the most fascinating things about Daemon, who is arguably the most fascinating character in the series,
I love him,
is the fact that he's almost always in it for himself. And he'll play whichever side he needs to in order to get what he wants. And that's what makes him interesting, because of that level of unpredictability.
Yeah, I loved it. I also, those visions of Daemon just walking around in Harrenhal, they reminded me a lot of Macbeth when I would read Macbeth when I was a kid.
I know what you mean, like aesthetically,
being in the dark, castle, just walking around with
the production design of Harrenhal in this season is terrific. And we've seen Harrenhal before in Game of Thrones, conveniently in the second season of Game of Thrones is when Harrenhal appears, and they mention stories from the Dance of Dragons in that season as well, like Vhagar, and just the production design of Harrenhal is just terrific. I love it. And I don't agree with you on the Daemon arc necessarily, but I do like getting it to see Harrenhal in this season and really feeling the impacts that its legend is known for in the world of Westeros.
Where does it lose you? I think I know where. Is it his last vision?
Well, no. Really? It didn't help, but it had lost me long before that.
Whoa.
And it's mostly just because I think that the arc is drawn out. And it's a literal character arc that could have been wrapped up in 2 episodes. Because something that this season does not do as well as the first season is balance its character screen time. And it's because this season has a lot more characters than the first season.
Absolutely.
But almost every single episode is trying to showcase every one of those characters. Where if you remember in season 1, number 1 had less characters, but the way that it wraps things up in that season is the penultimate episode, episode 9, only shows the Greens. The Blacks do not appear at all in that episode. And then the
last episode,
and then the final episode only shows the Blacks. Yes, and the Greens do not appear at all, with the exception of Aemon Targaryen.
Yes,
but that was pivotal to the climax and the finale of that season.
Right.
And so for that reason, you have 2 different episodes that are cutting its cast in half and able to balance character development a lot better for that reason. And it also did help with the fact that that season had more episodes as well. But this season has less episodes and is trying to give every single character some sort of screen time in every single episode. And for that reason, the pacing is not as tight as the first season. And for that reason as well, I feel like they could have easily wrapped up that Harrenhal character arc for Daemon a lot quicker in this season.
And to be fair, I think there's a lot to argue about this season. I don't think everything about the season is perfect, including the finale, which I did enjoy. Let's just talk about the finale.
Well, we're gonna get there.
Okay. You actually want to go episode by episode.
I kind of do, because it's like let's do better than the show and pace this out a little bit.
Oh,
we're building anticipation. I know y'all want to hear our thoughts on the finale. We're gonna get there.
Okay. What are we on episode 3?
Believe me, I wasn't done with the Burning Mill.
Oh, fuck.
I wanted to talk about my favorite moment in this series, which is the very end of the Burning Mill episode, and it's the first confrontation between Rhaenyra and Alicent.
Yes.
It's a 15-minute long sequence of them sitting by the candlelights in the Great Hall, or the what is it? Not the Red Keep, but it's like
well, it's in the Red Keep, but it's the cathedral in the Red Keep.
So, and Rhaenyra had snuck in there, and her and Alicent have this very, very beautiful conversation, even though they're disagreeing for most of the conversation. It's the dynamic between these 2 characters is, I think, the central heart of this entire show.
Absolutely.
Because it's all revolving around the destruction of their initial relationship and everything that they're trying to do to maintain their own lives since that destruction. And this is the first time, and one of only 2 times, that we get to see them interact with each other this entire season. And it's a great moment, and it finishes off the episode perfectly, and it feels like a penultimate episode, because episode 4 is the big culmination of everything that this season has been building up to so far. And now I'll be done with the Burning Mill, and we can talk about Rook's Rest.
Okay. Well, no, I do want to say Rook's Rest. I do want to say that moment in when Rhaenyra and Alicent see each other, because they haven't seen each other for a few episodes in person, even from season 1, right? And you understand immediately what's at stake, because if Rhaenyra gets caught and gets killed, the war's over. The Greens win. No one's gonna get behind Jacaerys or Jace, right? The war's over, and she's taking this big risk to just see if there's anything in her childhood friend that is willing to put this war to rest. Unfortunately, Alicent is like, no, there's been too much bloodshed. Like, it's war. Fuck it.
It's probably the most haunting final line out of any episode this season for me. Is just her looking Rhaenyra dead in the face and saying, it's too late.
It's too late.
It doesn't matter what the truth is. It doesn't matter what we were supposed to do. It doesn't matter who was right or wrong.
Exactly.
The damage is done, and we're all going to end up destroying ourselves.
Yeah, Alicent admits that she misheard Viserys for the Song of Ice and Fire, right? And
somewhat.
Just doesn't somewhat, but she just
by the end
care.
of the season she does. But
right.
Yeah, at that point it's really invited into her mind, and just that last line of "It's too late, Rhaenyra," and just walks away. The beautiful score kicks in. And the episode ends. And that was also the first episode where a character didn't die at the very end this season. And it still holds, to me, the most emotional weight.
Episode 4?
Okay, episode 4, Rook's Rest. I mean, this is a hard one to talk about without spoiling, to be totally honest with you. So let's get to the end. You're right.
You want to spoil it now?
It's
time to spoil.
Maybe, but it's just hard to talk about Rook's Rest without spoiling anything, because that does feel like the climax of the biggest climax of this season. So I'm trying to think of how to lead into this part. So okay, I'm gonna flash to the end now. Because it is hard to talk about Rook's Rest, because the way I was phrasing it, this feels like the climax of the season. This feels like the big finale of everything.
Right.
Like, if the season ended on this episode, I could buy it as like a full season. Mm-hmm. It leaves just enough for you to be wondering what the fuck just happened and how is this going to go going forward.
What happened, Davis?
Well, huge battle happens. It's the only big battle sequence that we get in this entire season. Mm-hmm. And I don't hate that. I just think it comes too early in the season.
The climax comes too early in the season.
Yeah.
Oh.
I said that. Those are my words.
Well, that's the Loose Leaf Podcast, everybody.
That's it. Yep.
We'll see you next week.
Yep. Yeah, so it's the huge battle of Rook's Rest where the Greens and the Blacks end up fighting each other, and the family feuds.
Yeah, there's a lot that happens in this episode, right? You see...
It's like the shortest episode, too, this season.
Is it?
I'm pretty sure.
Well, there's a lot that builds up. Kristen Cole is leading this army to Rook's Rest.
Yep.
And he's strategically evading the Blacks' dragons that are surveying the entire land and trying to make sure that there's no armies. What are you laughing at?
I'm just listening.
What? No.
I don't
what's
have
so
anything
funny?
to say.
Am I a clown? Do I amuse you?
You do. I'm honestly, I was smirking because I'm really looking forward to hearing your full thoughts on Christian Cole. Because you said you love this character.
I love Christian Cole, even from season 1. I also love that people hate Christian Cole. I think that's...
So you texted me like 80 times during this season about how much of a bitch this guy is.
No, I didn't.
I literally have the text. You don't believe that?
Show me the proof.
So you want to see the proof?
Show the proof.
Why do you think that that's not something that you would say?
Because I know what the fuck text I'm sending, motherfucker.
Okay, well, keep talking. I'll pull it up for you.
Yeah. Unless there's someone breaking into my phone and texting you about Christian Cole. I don't remember when he was being a bitch. Like, I have no idea.
When he's throwing other people under the bus to cover his own ass.
Oh, yes. I do remember that. Okay.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Well, I hate when people do that.
Yeah, he does that all the time in this season and last season.
When does he do that?
Do we watch the same show?
I don't know. Hey, look.
He literally gets the twins killed.
Yes.
The Eric twins.
I hate that. Yeah,
sucked. Literally. Christian Cole is a bitch. You sent that shit to me, motherfucker.
Well, Davis just showed me a text verbatim.
Off. Fuck all the way off that shit.
I am honest.
Miss me with that bullshit, bro. You're like, honest. I would never say anything like that. I didn't say that.
I was corrected.
That's a delicate way. You were checked, motherfucker.
And I'm sorry.
Well, don't apologize to me. Apologize to the millions of people listening that you're
the
lying
millions
to
of people,
on
the millions of people that are listening to me.
Oh yeah, you better believe we got millions
of
listeners.
I'll do it. Our hundreds of millions of listeners.
The Christian Cole mob about to come for you. All the white women.
They're
gonna be like, how could you think he was so?
I still love Christian Cole. No, everyone hates Christian Cole. I love him.
I hate him too, but I think he is definitely one of the most interesting characters in the show.
By the end of the season,
because he has the best moment in the last episode.
Let's wait.
Yeah, you want to wait now?
Let's wait.
I'm with it. I
can jump out of my seat talking about that.
I love that.
Well, he has. You know what? I was really about to jump off the rails.
I want you to.
No.
This went off the rails. See, this is what Christian Cole does to people, man. He makes people crazy. This guy's a menace.
When the microphones are off, I'm gonna tell you what I wanted to say.
Oh, okay. But, I'm gonna hold you to that.
No. I'm writing it down right now.
Good.
But the whole before that episode, Christian Cole is making a lot of progress. He is scheming with Aemond on how to take Red whatever the fuck it's called,
Rook's Rest.
Yeah. Okay, and all of that progress is wiped away. Aegon hears
because the family be feuding, bro.
Right? Yeah, and there's a lot of tension.
I mean, Aegon does Aemond dirty in the last episode by just like fucking exposing his sensitivity and then just making fun of him with his frat boys.
Yeah,
it's the only moment that I feel bad for Aemond in this entire series. Otherwise, that kid's biggest menace in this whole series.
Oh yeah, I kind of like Aemon too.
Oh, he's one of my favorite characters.
Yeah,
he's he's one of the most fascinating characters in this series.
I like menaces.
I know you do.
Yeah.
Which is weird. You're like nothing like any of those people.
Yeah, you're probably right. I'm definitely Davos, but I still like menaces.
Yeah. Okay.
But anyway, no.
I'm not gonna ask you for relationship advice anymore since you idolize Christian Cole.
I don't give relationship advice. I just drop truth bombs, buddy.
Buddy boy.
What's up, bub? No, we're gonna have to edit the shit out of this episode. By the way,
we're good.
No, we're good.
We're
Oh
good.
my god, whatever.
They need to hear this.
They need.
They need to hear your Christian Cole sympathizing.
I am.
That's okay because that's fine because I was an Allison sympathizer throughout most of the season.
Oh, I know you were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said what I said.
I know you did
until the last episode, and then I was like, no, she's got to go.
Really?
Yeah.
I think she will. I think. Okay.
We gotta get to the last episode now.
Yeah. Well, we're only halfway through the episode.
Fuck it. We'll backtrack. Fuck this shit. Let's talk about the last episode.
Sure.
It's not good. It's a bad finale. It's a really bad finale that pays nothing off and nothing happens. And it recycles scenes from earlier episodes in this season just to make itself feel a sense of finality.
Recycle scenes.
Literally, the last scene is recycled from my favorite moment this entire season, which is a confrontation between Rhaenyra and Alicent, continuing that conversation. And the conversation goes nowhere.
But in a different room.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So great.
No, I'm saying, though, I agree with you. And even if...
Just nothing happens in the
last episode. If we're thinking... No, you've brought up a good point. Because I'm thinking about all the conversations that were had. Basically, episode 8 doesn't have a ton of action. In fact, a lot of the action happens off screen where Aegon takes his dragon Vhagar and burns an entire... Aemon. I'm sorry. Aemon takes his dragon Vhagar and just burns a village.
Like, I don't usually mind those moments because they do that in the Burning Mill by not showing the big fight that happens between the Blackwoods and the Brackens. Right. And I love that the way the episode starts out. And again, it's still a good episode. It's entertaining for sure. The dialogue is still rich. Cinematography is still great. It's just not a good finale for this season. No.
But what I'm pointing out is when we go back to the Burning Mill and that battle happens off screen, it's okay because it's not the blacks versus the greens, right? Mm-hmm. It's not really relevant. There's no relevant character that is in that battle anyway. Yeah. So if you just show the destruction of this battle, that's all you have to. That's all that's important to the story. Fine. But at the end of episode 7, and probably my favorite scene that was so powerful.
Yeah, probably it's definitely one of the ending of episode 7. Yes, one of the best moments of the series. When
Rhaenyra is standing in front of 3 powerful dragons and Vhagar and Aemond have to just fly away because they're like, fuck, okay, Vhagar has been a badass these whole 2 seasons, but can Vhagar stand...
That girl just wants to sleep.
Right?
Exactly. Like all the dragons.
but can Vhagar stand up against these 3 dragons, even if it's amateur dragon riders? Probably not. No. And so that could have been the finale for me.
I know. Like, I've heard a lot of people talk about that. Like, a lot of people say that last shot... could have been the ending of this season. Yeah. And I agree. Like, it mirrors the last shot of the first season of Rhaenyra turning around.
Well, she turns around
in anguish and anger right as she found out her son has been killed. And this is when you see her, she's war ready. And it's a great way to end that episode. And it would have been a better way to end this season.
And what I'm trying to say is that when Aemond flies off to another village and just completely burns all the villagers alive in that area, it would have been important to see that because that's a character that's relevant to the story, and he's reacting to the previous episode's end, where he's upset that now the blacks have the upper hand strategically, or at least like on a power scale
for forces, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that happening off screen is a letdown.
Sure.
And to your point, I think a lot of the conversations were probably even like shot just at different points, right? Sure. So like if you have like the Gwen and Kristen Cole scene where they're just sitting around, right?
So fucking
that
good.
They
scene.
probably shot that scene when they were shooting the other scenes
with them, yeah. Because because all the characters are so splintered off, and that's pretty Game of Thrones fashion too. Eventually, all characters start like splintering off and going on their own storylines, and a lot of them don't end up reuniting. And there's a brilliant scene also in The Burning Wheel where Baela and Rhaena Targaryen say goodbye to one another, and it's when Rhaena is going off to fucking the Vale, with Rhaenyra and Daemon's younger kids, and I love that goodbye that they exchange with one another. But it gives me that sense of dread that I don't know if they're gonna ever see each other again now, because Game of Thrones does that shit all the time, where it's like characters will have these like farewell moments, and then they will never see each other again because somebody dies. And Baela and Rhaena are also two really great characters in this season. I think they have some of the best lines.
Wait, what did you just say?
Baela and Rhaena are two of the best characters this season as well.
Oh, fuck, I have to disagree.
Really? I think Rhaena gives one of the greatest line deliveries in this whole show.
Rhaena is the one that's married to Jace, right?
No, that's Baela.
Okay.
Rhaena, when Baela says, I am blood and fire, Driftmark belongs to salt and sea, to Corlys Velaryon. Powerful ass moment. And that entire dialogue scene is so powerful because it's in the aftermath of, spoiler alert, Rhaenys' death. I think Rhaena's a very interesting character this season as well, but to the point of the last episode being kind of a fucking mess, I'm sitting there for 2 episodes watching her chase this dragon down, when it's like, that could have been one fucking episode. I don't get why that. And guess what? She gets to a point that you expect her to get to, and then they just cut it off. And that whole episode does that with every fucking character.
So I agree with you specifically with Rhaena. The whole time she's chasing around the dragon, to be honest with you, I have no idea what she's doing because there's not a lot of dialogue for her in the last 2 episodes. And so I'm like, is she chasing a dragon? I don't know. She's, the burning goat bones, or she's following
the sheep,
so the sheep, so obviously she's chasing a dragon, but I have no idea why. And
she's chasing the dragon because she was not able to get a dragon for herself, so she's taking an opportunity to tame one, or to bond with one, which I liked, and I want to see that happen. It's just that it only takes you to the point that you expect it to get to. You want to see what happens after she finds the dragon.
They should have had a shot, at the very least, where maybe the end of her arc for season 2 could have been her flying away on the dragon. At least. Right? Like, you don't have
for
to
all
have...
I know, they'll open the next season with that dragon burning her alive.
There's a lot of that
I don't necessarily expect that, but who the fuck knows?
Well, what Adam Hull had with Sea Smoke, that was a great scene.
So good.
and it would have been nice if Rhaena had an
a scene
equivalent
similar, right?
That's all I'm saying. But I feel like her arc fell flat. There's other characters in the final episode where I thought, oh, you know what? Like, this episode is very dialogue heavy.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of scenes that just were very sobering to me, particularly the Kristen Cole scene.
Best scene in the last episode to me.
It just...
because it's the only time where I feel like the character really goes through a full arc.
Yeah.
And it's a lot. You could say that about Daemon. I just don't like how Daemon's arc ends in that episode. But Christian Cole gives an amazing monologue in that episode that speaks to a lot of the themes of this entire series. And I want to talk about the themes later for House of the Dragon, but just accepting his own flaws and his own failures, and also accepting his own destruction that is to come, and saying that everything that we're doing is futile. And it literally, the direction of that scene is so great because it ends in the complete opposite way that it begins.
Yes.
You got Gwaine Hightower, one of my favorite new characters in this season too.
His acting is
who
amazing.
Also gives who has one of my favorite scenes and exchanges between characters when he says goodbye to Alicent, and we get some information about Daeron Targaryen, who fucking kill me, we don't get to see once this season. But when he's like holding that sword to Christian, and he's like, he's ready to fuck his shit up, and then Christian's is like, I don't care, do it, we're all gonna die anyway, essentially. And then Gwaine's like, damn, you're kind of right, and he literally just puts his sword down and sits next to him in fucking despair. And it's like, that is excellent direction. Where was that this entire episode?
Well, it goes back to the episode where because Gwaine is with Kristen Cole during the battle at
Rook's Rest.
Why do I keep forgetting Rook's Rest?
I don't know. That's weird.
But Kristen Cole sees the destruction that dragons at war with each other can do.
And you do sense that change from his character after that scene.
Yes.
Because he doesn't really do much after that point. And some people will say that that's take that as a negative through the series, but for where it leads in that last episode, I think it makes perfect sense. And again, it feels like a full arc for his character this season.
Well, he was scheming with Aemond a lot at first, and then after he sees the destruction that the dragons do at Rook's Rest, and he sees Aemond almost kill Aegon, he seems almost dejected and is just a person that's almost just walking slowly to his own demise. He's just like, whatever happens. Nothing that I do matters when dragons are flying around. Even like his quotes, like honor is only a mist that will be. That
was poetry,
right?
When he says that.
The writing for this fucking season, I don't care what anyone says.
The writing the dialogue is really good. When he's just talking about like how all knights are secretly dishonorable. Yeah. There is no such thing as true honor anymore. Yeah. And I'm just like, that's kind of what Game of Thrones has always been trying to tell its watchers. That it's just like these characters have this self-righteousness about them because that's what's expected of everybody in this world, but nobody actually adheres to it. One of the only characters that actually did in this entire series was Ned Stark.
And he dies at the...
he dies with most characters thinking that he was still a dishonorable man because he had cheated on his wife and had this bastard child that was living with them. And that turned out to not be true. And that perfectly confirms the fact that he was one of the only honorable men in this entire world. And it's a great scene with Christian Cole, though. Just a terrific scene.
Yeah, I love that scene. Because it starts with Kristen Cole just sitting on a log, and he's smelling Alicent's handkerchief. Yeah. And... Gwaine, who is Alicent's brother, looks at the handkerchief and sees the A written on the handkerchief and just puts it all together that...
and he gives looks a couple times in the season when he sees them talking to one another, or he sees Christian Cole looking. Right. And so you already could tell that Gwaine was getting the indication that there was something going on there.
Right. And Gwaine just puts the sword up to Kristen Cole's neck and is like, you're fucking the queen. Like, just very in front of everyone, in front of all the soldiers, and they're just all looking at him, and Kristen Cole just doesn't even care. It's almost like, kill me.
Yeah, because he has no more hope anymore. Exactly. Like you said, after Rook's Rest, he saw the destruction. He saw what this is all leading to and how this has nothing to do with them. This is a family matter.
And Kristen Cole even talks about how Alicent saved him twice. And so...
And to be totally honest, I like that he brings that up because I almost forgot about that. I was like, yeah... I mean, it makes more sense why he is so loyal. He is very vindictive and just hates Rhaenyra for really stupid reasons, really. Yeah. But at the same time, understanding his loyalty for Alicent Hightower, it was nice to have that reminder in that moment.
Well, Rhaenyra threw him away.
Yeah.
She did.
She did. And it's she absolutely did, but I mean, it's been fucking 20 years, dude.
Well, look, don't hate the player, hate the game. Like, it's okay. We all get thrown away.
You're still hung up on your ex from 20 years ago.
Well, that would mean I'd be 8 years old. So who was I dating?
Yeah, who are you dating? 8? I'm curious.
Well, honestly.
You have a good second grade?
Hillary Coleman.
Oh, shout out.
Yeah, shout out to Hillary Coleman.
I don't know. Are we shouting out to...
Wait, do you have a second grade crush?
I don't know.
Schoolboy crush?
I don't know. I don't care. It doesn't matter. No. That's the point. When we were talking about characters that don't really get a payoff this season, were we both talking about Otto?
I was talking about Rhaena, but Otto too.
Okay. I was specifically talking about Otto. No, because the last episode has one of the worst edits I have ever seen in this show.
It flashed right before my eyes. I was like, was that Otto?
So stupid and so shitty that I'm like, whose fucking idea was that to edit that in? Because at that point, I had made perfect peace that we weren't going to see Otto again this season, and I was okay with that, and I would have been okay with that in that last episode. But I'm like, that just made no sense contextually. It made absolutely no sense. So I don't know whose fucking idea that was, but that was a terrible edit.
Yeah, we should say, if you haven't seen the show, and I guess we're beyond spoilers.
Oh yeah, we've made that disclaimer.
there's just one quick shot where early in the season, Otto Hightower just leaves.
One of the biggest twists in the season, too.
Yeah, because
gets relieved of his duties as Hand of the King, and then when Aegon goes, give it to Cole.
Yeah,
I was just like, wait, what?
Because you think he's giving it to Larys Strong.
Yeah.
and that's been sort of building up too. But I think by the end of
Larys
this,
Strong also has a really great character arc this season too. I want to put that out there.
Yeah, because we see him, we see him stick around in the fight. Mm-hmm. He's not a part of the council.
It's always kind of 2 steps forward, 1 step back with his character, and that's what I like seeing. It's like right when he loses, when he's trying to gain something, he always re-strategizes and gains so much more.
Two limps forward, 2 limps back.
That's ableist.
There's a lot of that. Well, he has one great line in this show too, where he's talking to Aegon, who's bedridden after being burned alive and almost murdered by his brother.
That man was fucked
and his leg is broken, and so now he's gonna be he's been maimed. He has this huge burn mark on the left side of his body, and his left leg is broken, and so he's gonna be a cripple for the next phase of his life. And Larys Strong says to Aegon, you're gonna be what does he say?
It's great. It's a great scene. It's very much like the scene in season 1 with Tyrion Lannister talking to Jon Snow, talking about like how everybody's gonna see this as your deficiency. Use it as your strength.
Larys says people are gonna underestimate you, and that's gonna be your strength.
And he's like tearing up revealing this, like the acting from that guy. I don't remember the actor's name that plays Larys Strong, but he's like tearing up revealing these qualities about himself and passing this knowledge on to Aegon. It's a great scene.
Matthew Needham plays Larys Strong.
Terrific performance. Yes. I mean, all the acting in this whole show is just top tier.
There's no weak actor.
Not a single weak actor. But that scene is just so good. So good. So as you were talking about Christian Cole, it really made me want to really talk about what I believe the themes of this season are for this, because I think there was this very strong misinterpretation when watching this show that you as a viewer are supposed to be picking sides and that there are good guys and bad guys, which I believe is the complete opposite of what the show is trying to illustrate. It's very different from Game of Thrones like that, and I think it's honestly a lot more similar to one of our favorite shows, Succession.
Oh my.
In that way, where it's a lot about the duplicity of entitlements and what people think that they are entitled to. And I think the show is about genocide. I think it's about classism, particularly in this season, where it's introducing a lot of points of view from the small folk in this world, which this series has never done before. And it's very largely about mutually assured destruction. And a lot of that has to relate with the fact that it's just one family's conflict with each other and what they believe is their claim to the throne. And we haven't talked much about Jacaerys this episode. He's a very interesting character this season as well. A lot more underrated in his complexity, I would say. He doesn't do a lot, but that's also kind of part of his character in this, is the fact he doesn't feel like he's contributing enough and just like measuring up to his namesake. And I think there's a really profound line at one point that just kind of, it feels very throwaway, but I think speaks a lot to the way that the characters view themselves in this series. And it's a moment where it's one of the last moments in, I think in episode 6 or 7, when he's talking to his mother Rhaenyra, and he's essentially saying that you're bringing in all of these bastards in order to claim our position, and if anybody feel like they can do it, what does that make us? And Rhaenyra is like, I just need to do this. We need to unite people. And he just basically says to her, no, you don't. You don't need to do anything like this. You can just walk away from this conflict because it's bringing you and everyone else nothing but death and misery. And then Rhaenyra has one of the most shallow responses in this whole season by just saying, this is my destiny. This is what I was chosen to do. And that, I think, speaks to that theme of entitlement, where these characters have this name. They're all highborn. They're all conflicting with each other, particularly in their own family. But they just believe that it's what they're supposed to do when they could just walk away from this at any time. And Jace, I think, is very problematic this season But I think he's very right about that point, where it's like they don't need to do this. They can walk away at any point. But they are actively deciding to mutually assure their own destructions.
Mm-hmm. No, you make a great point. There's even the scene where Rhaenyra is trying to find new dragon riders after it's found out that Adam, even though he is not full-blown Valerian or Targaryen, he can ride Sea Smoke. And so they send people to the Red Keep and basically say, hey, we're looking for bastards with Targaryen blood.
Yep.
And they bring all of these people, these poor people, just to Dragonstone to see if they can ride a dragon. And they bring out the second biggest dragon in the show,
Vermithor.
Oh,
what a fucking beast.
And
he's so cool.
He just comes out of the darkness.
One of the greatest shots in this entire series.
Absolutely.
You know the shot.
Yeah.
Where Rhaenyra just turns around and you see him right behind him. And it perfectly mirrors like some of the like promotional imagery from the first season with young Rhaenyra standing like in front of a huge dragon head.
Yes.
And I was like, full circle moment right there. That's
absolutely
cool as hell.
It was.
And then there's it's followed by one of the greatest long takes that you'll ever see on television.
When she's walking away?
No, when like Vermithor starts like decimating everybody,
right.
and Hugh is running around the pit.
Yes.
It's like 10 fucking minutes of Vermithor just like decimating everybody, Hugh running away, and then the last moment Hugh puts his hand right on Vermithor and bonds with him, and it's like after everybody's dead.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Rhaenyra leads all these people to their deaths.
That is
and she thinks that she is this queen, and she has this ownership of the kingdom, and she does not give a fuck about anyone's life, her sons, the rest of her family, the people that stick with her. She will walk over everybody, including these very poor people, these people that that can be easily taken advantage of because they're looking for food, they're looking for wealth,
and they're also looking for purpose,
right? And they just get burned alive, and it's just fucking terrible. And
that's why there's such a huge misinterpretation with taking sides in this show, because this family are committing constant war crimes, sending people to slaughter for their own benefit just to claim to the throne. And you can sit there and say that Rhaenyra is trying to appease the small folk when the Greens aren't. She's only doing that because it benefits her.
Yeah,
that's a good cause, but she would not do that had it not benefited her. And the last episode really emphasizes that when she's telling all of these new dragon riders, go to all these different cities, lay waste to everything because this is green territory. And then Hugh questions her and says, you want us to kill innocent people? And Jace and her are like, well, yeah, because this will win us the war. And I'm just like,
and they're no different from
exactly.
Aemond.
It's so easy to say that the Greens are the bad guys in the series because they're very upfront about it in this series. They like, you as a viewer are always it's very obvious that it's like, yeah, these people fucking suck. They're terrible. But the problem with the blacks is that they don't constantly acknowledge how shitty their behavior is, as much as the Greens just don't care about how shitty their behavior is. And that's the main draw, or the main takeaway that I think that people are misinterpreting, is that the show isn't really asking you to take sides. It doesn't encourage you to take sides either. It's telling a very Shakespearean drama and tragedy about one family who are mutually assuring their own destruction because of their entitlements.
And it's very real, right? Like, even in wars today, we don't send over, like, it's like Fortunate Son, that song, right? It's like, it ain't me.
Yeah.
It ain't me. I ain't no senator son.
Ooh, that red, white, and blue.
I mean, if you've seen any war movie.
If you've seen any Vietnam War movie.
It ain't me. It ain't me. That's Creedence Clearwater, right?
Me. Yes, it is. CCR.
I ain't no senator's son, right? It's just like the
just like I don't have this like
yes
these safety nets attached to my life.
Because even Jace, who's a dragon rider, isn't being sent out to war on his dragon because he's the next in line, right? So these other dragon riders who are bastards are actually going to do war, actually going to do the things that Jace wants to do. No, you're right.
Also they're more expendable to somebody like Rhaenyra. And it's like, I get it. she's lost a lot of people, particularly children of her own too, and she doesn't want to send Jace to war, especially since Jace has like a dragon that's tiny as shit. But it's also, but Jace is so eager this whole season to prove himself as like a formidable warrior, especially towards his like arch nemesis that is Aemond, that he's just like, he feels backseated for that reason. And then Rhaenyra's like, yeah, I'll bring in all these other bastards and just make them go to war for me. And if they die, at least you'll be alive. And that's very motherly of her. But at the same time, it's like very sacrificial and placing this expendable nature on all of these other people.
Well, yeah, because these other people have mothers. They were once children. So why are their lives more expendable than your child? Exactly.
And they're all small folk. You know, they're all people that were already like scrounging for scraps in the first place. So it, like in a mind like Rhaenyra, it's just like maybe nobody's gonna miss them nearly as much as like the next of kin. Like Rhaenys says in The Burning Mill, it's just like there's no war more formidable or bloody than a war between kin.
Oof. Well, I might disagree. I'd say a war between dragons is way bloodier.
She does say that too, but it was the fact that it's the dragons being ridden by kin.
Sure.
That makes it so destructive and terrible.
Let's segue into the production of the show.
Oh, I got some things to say about that.
Yeah, like I would think that HBO has poured in so much money into this show. I wonder why they stopped at 8, because last season was 10 episodes, right?
I couldn't find a very good reason as to why, but I had a theory after this ended. And this was one of the only productions that didn't abstain itself when the writer's strike broke out last year.
Interesting.
This was one of the only shows that was already, well, not just shows, but even movies. Yeah. This was one of the only things that was already in production. It was in production for a few weeks. Most productions halted when the strike started. And that's why there were so many delays for films and TV shows for this year. And this was not one of them. They continued production. And I read a couple of articles, one of which was from Entertainment Weekly regarding this. And I had my theory initially was that they hadn't finished writing this season. So they had to figure out a way to tie it all up because the writer's strike had happened and they weren't able to get people on board to write the final couple episodes of the season. I wasn't able to find any evidence to support that theory. But
it's as good as probably any other one.
I guess, yeah. But I was reading some articles about how they were handling the production of this during the writer's strike. And quote from, I believe it was Sarah Hess, who was one of the main writers of this season, and one of the main showrunners, along with Ryan Condal, who was the main showrunner and creator of the series.
Yes.
Literally said, quote, "It was rough. It felt shitty. I'm not going to lie." And so for that reason, clearly it wasn't easy to produce this show during the writer's strike happening. And they assure people that every episode the script had been written. But I still contend that even though they had every episode written for this season, was it still supposed to be 8 episodes, or were they not able to write 10 because of the writer's strike?
Right.
And so, but again, they were already in production when the writer's strike had broken out. Therefore, if they're assuring people that all episodes had been written, then that must mean that they began production with the intention of it only being 8 episodes. And if that's the case, I have no fucking idea why they limited themselves, because those were some of the worst parts about Game of Thrones, was that the last 2 seasons were substantially less episodes than the average season of that show. And it was highly detrimental to the quality of the ending of that show.
Yeah, I would say that season 2 is definitely better than season 2 of Hot D is definitely better than season 7 and 8.
Oh, 100%.
Right, yeah.
100, like, there's a lot of people out there that are saying it's like this season was worse than season 8.
No,
and the last episode of this was worse than the last episode of season 8 of Game of Thrones. Get the fuck out of here.
That's just wrong.
I've seen people that have been saying that. I'm like, get the fuck out of here.
And I don't
absolutely not.
I never want to just go out and say like you're absolutely wrong about anything, but come on.
Come on.
That's
like,
fucking no.
Like, I don't know what you need to do with your standards, but they need to change.
No, and no, you even though this is a truncated season, I would still rather have a short season where every episode resonates with me than something that's like long and drawn out.
I agree.
And would it have benefited more from 1 or 2 more episodes? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I do think that I really think that they should have had a scene of Aemond actually burning down that city.
That would have been great.
Right.
We should have actually seen the full payoff of Rhaena tracking down that dragon for 2 fucking episodes.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is what I'm saying. It's like where the pacing just feels off in that last episode, where it's like every scene that we've seen of Rhaena chasing after that dragon has lasted like 3 episodes.
Yeah.
And they could have just all put that in one episode here.
You know what? What would have been even nice is if you just make the season 7 episodes and end with Rhaenyra having the 3 dragons.
We agreed with that.
If episode 8 of this season was the first episode of the 3rd season.
Oh, you kidding me?
I would
have been hyped.
Okay,
bro. Like the way this ends, I would have been like, oh, we're in for I'm locked in for the season because it would be building itself up for nothing but spectacle throughout most of the season, and I would be here for that because it would be a nice, slow, easy start to begin with to reintroduce us to all these characters, and then we're off to the races for the entire season.
HBO,
but it just leaves us with nothing. It feels like it just leaves us on a hook, and it's not a good hook. To me, it feels cheap in some of the worst things that a lot of TV shows have done. I told you before we recorded this, I wanted to refer this to an episode of Breaking Bad, and I got to watch that show for my first time last year, and it's a great show. It really lives up to its hype, but I think it was season 3, ends on a dramatic cliffhanger that I thought was so cheap, and it's the moment where Jesse is sent to assassinate Walter's partner at the time,
right.
And it cuts you off right before you see if he did it or not. And I thought that was so fucking cheap, and I felt so bad for anybody that had to wait until the next season for that, because I don't think that's fair to trick your audience into coming back for the next episode. It can help build anticipation, but it doesn't feel like a finale. It feels like there's more story to be told. And Walking Dead does that kind of shit several times too, especially at the end of season 6 where they reveal Negan in what is one of the best sequences in that entire show. But when it's built up that Negan is about to kill one of the main characters, all you do is you get a POV shot of Negan beating the living fuck out of somebody with his bat, and then we don't get to see who it is until the next season. And I think when shows kind of do that, I think it's a little cheap. And it's not that dramatic in this show, or in the finale of this season, but it does leave you with just like too many unresolved things. It doesn't feel like this season as its own individual season wraps itself up at all in that episode. For me, at least.
No, I think I like episode 7 being the finale more. Just it's so strong. Rhaenyra's constantly trying to struggle to get her army back together. She's constantly losing resources, and at the end of this episode, she gets 3 dragon riders, and she's so formidable that even Vhagar has to fly away.
It's like, oh, fuck that
right?
shit.
Like, fuck, let me take a nap, motherfucker.
I'm going back to sleep.
I'm going back to sleep. Fuck
and
this
then,
shit.
Yeah, and then Aemon's like, no, we're going to go burn a bunch of people down. Poor Vhagar. I honestly feel bad for Vhagar. I don't think Vhagar honestly wants Aemon to be her rider.
Probably not.
Because, what was it? I think it was Laena Valerian was the former rider of Vhagar.
Yeah.
And she was awesome.
I guess a lot of people, it depends on what you come in looking forward to for a show based on Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon, where I think there's a crowd that loves the dialogue and the wordplay and just the scheming that happens in the small council. And then there's the people that like the big battles, they like the fantasy parts and knights in shining armor fighting. And it's hard to serve both masters. It's really tricky. For
the first 6 seasons of Game of Thrones, I think they balanced that almost perfectly, because every other season, actually even to if you kind of how do I put this, for the first 6 seasons, every other season, the penultimate episode is a huge battle.
Oh, right.
Blackwater,
Right.
second to last episode of season 2. Watchers on the Wall, second to last episode of season 4. And then Battle of the Bastards, second to last episode of season 6. And there's Hardhome too in season 7 as well, but that's kind of relegated to the last 20 minutes of that episode, where it's not the entire episode, but it's also a great battle scene. And then after Battle of the Bastards, the next big battle scene that we get is the Long Night in the final episode, or in the final season. So they pace themselves really well with their spectacle and their like grounded dialogue-driven drama. And I don't know if House of the Dragon, even as an entire show, has found that perfect balance yet. And I'm looking forward to seeing how they strike it in the next couple seasons, because they've confirmed now that this will end with season 4.
No kidding.
Yes. As of a couple days ago, I think, they just confirmed that. And
House of the Dragon ends with season 4.
I'm very happy about that, because that's been the sweet spot, I think, for a lot of TV shows.
Sure.
For like last half a decade. I
Sure.
mean, my 2 favorite shows in that time period have been Succession and Atlanta. And those 2 shows end with 4 seasons, and they're 4 magnificent seasons of television. And I think this show has a good chance to end itself well with 4 seasons. And then we're going to look back at season 2 as kind of the underdog one that was misunderstood upon its release for its finale, and not feeling like it wraps things up for this particular season perfectly.
Right. How about this? To wrap it up, I do think that HBO, even with the conclusion of, you said that this House of the Dragon will end after 4 seasons. I think that every decade will have some sort of Game of Thrones show.
Oh, we're already getting a new one next year too.
Which one?
It's like called look it up. It's like, what is it called?
Oh my god.
Yeah, I was a little put off by it, but I saw a teaser for it in the start of the finale of season 2. But it's like, I don't remember the name of it.
I think we should have an animated show about the Night King and just doing random shit where it's like kind of like a Family Guy, but it's Night King and his family, and like the baby that he turns into a White Walker, and then he's got a Night King dragon.
We got to see the White Walkers again.
Yay! But I want to do like an animated White Walker show. Yeah, it'd be like a sitcom, a comedy.
I mean, we don't really know what they're doing for most of Game of Thrones.
Exactly.
They could just be chilling.
Whoa.
No pun intended.
Whoa. Hey, get the fuck out of here. Don't you love that part of the final when before the Night King gets killed by Arya, he says revenge is a dish best served cold. Don't you love that part? I do
love that part.
It's so amazing.
Like right as he's about to kill Brandon Stark. Yeah. And he's just like, revenge is
No, you know what he says? Freeze.
He's just like, hey, chill.
Ooh.
What are you looking at, little kid? Chill.
Oh no. God.
This is a good season of television, though. Sure. Regardless about how I feel about the ending, it was a good season. Not as tight as the first season. Not as well paced as the first season, which is funny because the pacing is very unconventional in the first season. Still good. Still really good. Any final thoughts from you?
I love Kristen Cole.
Love it. Dead air.
Well, folks, that was the end of the podcast episode.
And probably the existence of the podcast, because we're getting canceled for our sympathizing with genocidal maniacs.
Whoa. Well, we don't like the genocidal. Whoa, Gymno Mama maniacs.
Baba Booey.
Baba Booey.
Everyone's a genocidal maniac in this show.
Are they?
Kinda.
Adam of Hull.
Okay, never mind. The black people are good.
Yes, the black people are cool.
They literally are. Like, they're probably the most innocent out of everybody.
They are. All of the small folk are innocent.
It's all the white people.
All of the poor people are innocent.
The poor people and the black people are they're good.
Well, yeah, because not all the black people are poor in this show.
That's true.
Yeah.
But,
Kinda
it's
wealthy.
Worse to be poor and black.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like it's just
hot
good.
Take from
it's
Davis.
it's just a good thing that most of the black people in the show are not poor. because they're the Valerians.
Yes.
Even though fucking Alan is just sitting there in a shipping yard for the entire season.
And that's what I was going to say about the last shot that we see him in is when he's arguing with Corlys.
That's one of the other good moments from the last episode.
It's good, but you can tell that they probably shot that at any time because all of the there's like out of the 6 conversations that they have, maybe
it's all in one,
4 of them
all
are
in
on
one spot.
One dock outside of the same boat, and there's no way of telling them apart. Like if I just showed you those scenes and I gave you no audio and it was just them talking, you wouldn't be able to say, oh, this happened earlier in the season, this happened late in the season. There's no distinction.
So true.
But I still love the show. I still love the season. I'm looking forward to season 3.
Me?
It's probably going to be in 3 years, right?
Oh god, they're gonna make us
2 years.
Yeah, 2 years still. Though.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I don't like that new trend.
Well,
remember the day when a television show would end in the spring and then return in the fall?
Yes.
Like
those days are over.
I know, and I don't like that. Like, come on, get fucking going here.
Well, I think
they should have started filming or like started shooting this season at the start of this year so they can release it at the end of this year.
I think the issue is that there's so much content out there and all the studios are spread so thin that there's a backlog, right?
Like the trailer for like that promo trailer that HBO did before this finale for all the shows coming out next year. It's wild.
Yeah.
Got White Lotus coming out, which that's probably my most anticipated show for next year. You got The Night of the Seven Kingdoms is the name of the spin-off show that comes out next year.
Industry.
Industry. That starts this week.
Yeah, I'm looking for. I love that show.
I need to get into that show.
Yeah.
But then next year you got Last of Us season 2 as well.
Yes.
And so it's just like they're pretty stocked up for next year in terms of like their mainstream productions.
The Penguin.
Oh yeah, the Penguin's coming out soon too. Yeah. I'm looking forward to that one. We'll see how it is, but TV's good though. Then you are absolutely right where it's like you got to space out all this content, and the production quality of television now is cinematic quality.
Yep.
So you can tell that so much, even in the second season of Game of Thrones, you can tell that there's a lot of meticulousness that went into crafting this correctly.
Well, even I would say that out of all of the shows that I've seen this year versus all of the movies I've seen this year, I feel like I've seen high quality television than I've seen high quality cinema.
I think that's very arguably true.
Right? Like it just, and I could say that for the last 5 years.
You could, for sure.
You know,
I know many people that would agree with that.
Right? Like for every movie that I would say was good in the last 5 years, I could probably name 3 shows.
3 shows,
right? Just 3 or 4 shows where I'm like, well, and that same
year
we had this season.
2 episodes of one season of television is the equivalent of a feature-length film, an average feature-length film.
Right.
So it's just like you're maintaining that production quality for like an average of like 10 to 13 episodes per season.
Yeah.
And in the case of miniseries, it's like maybe like 5 to 8 episodes for a miniseries, and that production quality is eclipsing so much of the production quality of many mainstream movies.
Or even like we talked about Succession, and I think our friendship even started over the love for Succession.
A lot of it did, I think. And that's kind of like a cult show.
Not a lot of people talk about it.
No. Like even when it was airing, it was a big deal for HBO, but I think it was mostly a big deal for like the production quality of it all.
Yeah.
Because and the fan base is so loyal, and there's not a single weak link in that entire show. That show is perfect from start to finish. But to this very day, it's not really a mainstream appealing show.
No, people don't talk about it like they talk about a Sopranos or The Wire or even Game of Thrones.
Even Game of Thrones,
with all of its problems. But I would say that I enjoy Succession more than any of those shows.
I agree, because it's like it's character drama. It's Shakespearean. It's dialogue driven. It's got some of the most unique and original dialogue you'll ever hear in a show. They're just making up crazy ass sentences and phrases every other fucking sentence and phrase.
Yeah.
But also the production quality, you see it. It's so high because it's about 1%ers. And they're living in a world of luxury constantly, and you see how lavish it actually feels. It's terrific for that reason. It is one of the greatest shows of all time.
And my original point was during the run of Succession, I can't think of a single movie during that time that I enjoyed more than watching even a single episode of Succession.
I get what you mean.
You know what I mean?
It was definitely like every single time that show was airing, like it was definitely the best thing I was watching at that time.
Yeah.
Like it was the most exciting thing to look forward to every week. And, you know, I got that with a lot of shows that came out this summer with The Boys and House of the Dragon, where I was just hyped for the next episode every single week. But Succession just had something different and was offering something so different for TV that I just don't... I think House of the Dragon does get very close to in terms of its like character dynamics and the treachery between everybody. But it's not as tight as that show. And even season 3, when you say All the Bells Say, it was one of your favorites of that show. That season was shorter than the other 3 seasons.
Yeah, it's like 6 episodes.
It's 9 episodes.
9, okay.
But like every season was 10 episodes, except for that one. But that one still feels so tight and pays everything off perfectly, where it doesn't feel like they needed to add anything more or cut anything down. I'm
starting Succession again tonight.
Facts. We might have to plan that for the end of the year for
sure. Yeah. Fuck, because we already have a ton to say.
We really do.
Yeah.
So, in conclusion, for anybody out there that loves a really great fantasy drama with excellent characters, excellent production value, and just is also very entertaining and dramatic, check out House of the Dragon. You don't necessarily need to watch Game of Thrones to enjoy this. It is very different from that show. A lot of the best qualities of Game of Thrones are present in House of the Dragon most of the time, I would say. But it does help having a background knowledge of watching through Game of Thrones to enjoy this show too, but it's not necessary. But yeah, I would highly recommend this show to anybody. I think it's a terrific show.
Same. And I'm looking forward to season 3.
Me too. I will be watching 4 on the first day that the first episode of season 3 drops.
In 2 years.
I'm just hoping that they're all 10 episodes for the next 2 seasons again, and we don't have any more of that Tywin Lannister fighting in mud pits bullshit anymore.
Oh yeah, that was definitely weird.
Yeah,
but that also they
did a lot with that in the last episode too.
They tacked on a lot of bullshit for his character at the end of the season.
Whatever reason.
Yeah. I thought they should have focused more on his twin brother that was actually about
the one that was like pulling up and like going ready to charge into war with Jason Lannister.
Well, that's the conclusion of this podcast episode. I hope that you all enjoyed.
Thank you for your patience. This definitely ran a lot longer than we thought, but we promise by the next episode for the next movie that we do, it'll be our average time of like 50 minutes to just over an hour or so.
Yeah.
But thank you for sticking with this. This was for us. We enjoyed it. House of the Dragon rocks. Go check it out. As always, this is the Loose Leaf Media Podcast. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I did this with my co-host,
Romanus.
And we will see you guys on the next one.
Bye.
Long live Allison Hightower.
And Kristen Cole.